G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode. Today we are back in the shed and we're going to continue work on the army trailer. That's right, we're finally getting stuck back into the army trailer and we are very close to paint, so I'm hoping today we can actually get some paint on it. I'm freaking keen to get camping, so without further ado, let's get stuck into it. So where we left off in the last episode was I had this aluminium top made up for me. We managed to get that mounted on some hinges on the other side, and we also put these latches on. Now in the last episode, I tried to fit up some struts, but the struts were way too strong. A lot of you guys said to put the tent and the tub rack on and then try it, but honestly, they were way too strong. So I did go out and I bought some new struts, and now she opens like that. So as you can see, there is heaps and heaps of room to get in and get our camp stuff out of the top, and that is bloody awesome. Just to give you guys some perspective, these struts are 300 Newton meters each, where the other ones were 650s. And if I pull down here, it actually takes still quite a lot of force to pull that down. It stays down without even latching it, which I think is great because it just means that there's no force on any of the latches, and if it was to fail a latch, it's actually not going to fly open. Now the other thing I've done is I've gone out and bought one of these leveling jacks, and I did just mount a single one in the back for now. I don't know if one's going to be enough, but I can already stand on that. It is a bit shaky, but it's definitely not going to tip over. As you guys can see, we're actually not too far away from completing the paint job on this thing. And what I really want to do is tidy up everything that needs to be completely tidied up before we actually paint, because paint is sort of your last step. If there's any welding, any cutting, any grinding that needs to be done in a certain area that has paint on it, it will actually cause the paint to fail. So I want to get all the stuff that I can think about now done before we actually lay some paint on it. And one of those things is this ding in the back. I've kind of tried to press that out, and I've tried to hit it out with a hammer and a punch. It's just not budging. It kind of sucks because this is quite thick steel and it's completely folded on both corners there. Now what I did preemptively is I did cut this out of a piece that I took to the tip. It was actually the piece that we cut off the front. I sort of had a feeling that I wouldn't be able to get that out with a hammer, so I decided to quickly cut that out. Diesel's coming to give me a hand in the shed today, aren't you, bud? You bloody little weapon. So as you can see, that is now done. Wasn't too hard at all and looks 1,000 times better than a ding. Little things like that I reckon go a long way with a build like this, so I'm glad we got that done. Now moving up to the front of the trailer, this thing obviously doesn't have a jockey wheel. It has this sort of pole with a thread on it that you lock into a certain height. In all honesty, that thing does work alright, but for a camper style, it's not really the right thing to use, because if that thread ever let go, the trailer would actually just come crumbling down at the front. So we're going to piss that off and we're going to put on a swing away jockey wheel. And we're going to get that mounted right about there. And when I mount that, we have to be careful that in the stowed away position, we have enough room and it's not protruding out like this, because if it was, when you turn, you'll knock the wheel off it. I'll get the jack under it, we'll cut that old one off, mount this bastard on, then we can move on to some sanding. That is one long boy of a jockey wheel, but it looks good. And what I had to do is actually make sure that that bracket there was exactly 90 degree, otherwise it would have been kinked and on an angle. So I used my digital angle finder and it's bang on 90 degrees, which is great. It looks good, works good. The end of the wheel ends up about here when it's fully closed and the toolbox should fit. Right, so now we can actually move on to the bodywork now that that's done, which means we can start the bogging. So just little marks like that one there, and just along these seams here that I've welded those plates in. Because we are using Raptor coat, I obviously don't have to go as crazy with the bog and I don't have to get it as flat as possible. We're just trying to hide just the worst of those marks. There is quite a fair bit on the back there, as you can see. Basically only just going to be skim filling just the tiniest little bit. I'll also be skim filling this plate that I just did before, and then we can finally move on to some paint. Alright, the bogging is finally done and I've sanded it all down, as you can tell by my dusty shirt. That literally has to be one of the worst jobs in the automotive industry, is bogging and sanding. As you can see, I'll put a bit of primer on it and my primer is kind of reacting with the paint underneath. I don't know what's going on there, but it doesn't really matter because I have to sand the whole trailer now, which is gonna suck again. It's another shitty job for me. This is what I love doing. So obviously with any painting, you can't paint onto a smooth surface. So we do have to sand the whole trailer now. It's gonna suck. With aluminium, especially because we're Raptoring, the Raptor doesn't really like to stick to aluminium, so we have to edge prime all the aluminium as well. I found this kit at Bunnings and it's actually proven to be pretty good orbital pads. So pull it out, whatever grit you want. I'll probably be doing a 120, just like a light sort of scuff up, something that you won't see too much of the sanding marks on the paint. The other thing I don't know is if I'm going to paint with a top loading gun, or if I'm going to paint with a Schutz gun. Now the Schutz gun leaves it like a real body deadener finish, like really sandpapery. If I spray it with a top loader, it'll turn out like coal and it'll be very, very fine. It looks better, but it's not as tough. Being a camp trailer, I want it to be as tough as possible, so I'll either, I don't know, I'll spray either with a 2.0 tip and I won't thin it down much, or we'll use the Schutz gun and just blob it on like it's bloody sandpaper. The part that we repaired, you can hardly even tell that it's been repaired. There's a couple little waves, but way better than what it was. I do want to quickly cut just the corner off of that, just so it's not as sharp on that corner. I think it'll just look a tiny little bit better. It's all about the fine details. Anyway, that's enough talk. Time to get to sanding. Yay. Oh, this thing is bloody killing me. So what I need to do now is take off this number plate and take off this spec plate as well. I definitely don't want to paint over that. And all I got to do is just sand that bottom bit and we're done with sanding. So I'm going to have a quick tidy up because I'm in an absolute bloody mess. So one thing I just done at the rear here is I just knocked that corner off, and I think that has made a huge difference. Might be little, but big difference for sure. And something that just made a huge difference on this mudguard is I actually just tapered a cut back to a point there on both sides, and you can see how much tidier that side looks compared to that side where we have a square edge. So what I'll do is I'll draw another line up to there. I'll cut that off on both sides. Yeah, that definitely looks a lot more finished on that corner now. Definitely. Just had a massive clean up. That bloody bog dust gets in every single nook and cranny, and it's friggin' pissing me off. We are now completely out of time for today, which means that tomorrow I'll be back to prime and paint this beast. It's so good seeing some progress on the trailer after a couple of weeks of not working on it. Now as for the texture of the Raptor, I'm still not sure. I'm gonna have a serious think about it tonight. I am sort of leaning towards using the Schutz gun and having it real blobby like Raptor's actually meant to be, just so it's nice and tough and we don't have to do it again in the future, and I don't have to worry about scratches. I think the other way looks better though, so I don't really know which way to go. I'm gonna go recharge camera batteries, recharge my batteries, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. I am so bloody excited. Today is the day we finally get to paint this thing. I have gone around today already and just masked off these clips here because I don't really want to paint the handle because I think it'll just rub off eventually. And I've also just gone ahead and sanded just a couple little areas that I missed yesterday. We are looking bloody mint to actually lay some primer on it. So I've decided that I am going to primer the whole thing. I really think that as far as we've come, we may as well just primer the whole thing, then Raptor it and be done with it. We don't have to paint it ever again after that. It's honestly just going to lead to a much better job, so I'm keen to do it the right way the first time. So this morning I did go off and just get some etch primer, so I'll be spraying that. Don't even have to thin it down apparently. But as you can see, I've set my bench up a little bit. We've got our 4-litre Raptor kit. I've had that for friggin' yonks now. Got some 2K thinner. I've got my tint, which is just satin black, etch primer, mixing cups, got drop sheets, masking tape, and of course gun wash to clean the shit out of the gun. As for this tub rack, I'm unsure if I want to Raptor it or just 2-pack it. I think honestly it'll look a lot better in just 2-pack and it'll come out a lot neater, so I might just 2-pack that. So right, let's get stuck into getting this ready for the paint. I really want to paint outside, but we do keep getting scattered showers today, so I think we'll just paint in here today, guys, and hopefully I don't get paint everywhere because that would suck. Let's start getting this place ready to lay some paint, and I'm bloody excited. As you guys can see behind me, I have my makeshift paint booth. I've got the etch primer just in a mixing cup there just to help me pour it into here. I've got a 1.8 tip in the gun, if you guys can see that. Now I do always say this when I paint, but preparation is the key with this sort of stuff. Painting is the fun part, but you do want to enjoy it, and if your prep's not there, you're not going to enjoy it. You're going to see little imperfections. You're going to see stuff that you don't want to see in your paint, and it's going to piss you off. So I'm bloody excited because we are finally ready to see this thing in one color. It's been about 40 colors ever since I bought it, and painting it obviously signifies a massive step in just getting this thing on the road. We're done with metalwork, we're done with welding and grinding, and we are on to the fun fit out. So what I'll do, I'll chuck some paint in the paint gun and I'll get pretty well set up to spray this thing now. I'm not sure how I'm gonna try and film. I've got the GoPro on my step ladder here, so I might just be filming on GoPro just so I don't stuff this lens up. Right, I'm completely ready to start spraying. So let's get into getting this thing in one color. All right, she is finally in one color. How freaking good does that look? Honestly, so happy with that. All one color finally after months and months of being full camo army spec trailer. I did 2 full coats on top, 2 full heavy coats. That's just because aluminium doesn't really like Raptor at all. So recommended etch prime or epoxy prime, and I just wanted to lather it up on top. But the rest of it just got one decent heavy coat. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it leaves, etch primer always leaves this like powdery sort of finish on top of it. So what I do is actually go around and just key it all again, which is basically just rubbing it back down with like a 180 or 220 grit sandpaper. Saying it's not gonna like rip through the primer that you just laid, but just take the surface nice and flat. Once that's done, we can then move on to finally getting this thing in some black. Oh man. So you can see just even after a quick rub, it goes nice and flat. You see here, if you guys can see that bumpy, give it a nice rub. And you can see all that flaky stuff coming off, and she's nice and flat, ready for the Raptor. All right, got this nice and flat. I've sanded the whole thing over with 400 and it's come out really great. The guards were probably the worst, but they are really nice and flat now. So guess what, guys? We are ready for Raptor Dog. So it's time to unbox this. I will be thinning it down just a tiny little bit, probably not too much, and I'm going a 2.5 tip this time. I do want it to be a little bit thicker on this job. I don't want it to be as thin as my Patrol. So let's get into mixing some Raptor up so we can get this thing black. So I've got 2 tubs mixed up sitting there. So we are ready to rumble. What I'm gonna do is probably just practice shooting on the far side there. Once I am ready to come and spray, I will start filming. So it's time to go. Ready to Raptor, as they say in the biz. No, nobody says that. Let's get into some Raptor. So that is the first coat done, guys. You can see it's a little bit streaky, but the second coat is what I call the texture coat. Basically, you just try and even out all the paint as much as possible. The first coat, I'm mainly worried about just getting the trailer in the one color. And I also decided to paint this tub rack because I had a little bit left over, so that was bloody good. We're now on the second coat, which I always do just a texture coat. And you can kind of see it's very, very smooth. There's not much texture to it at all at the moment. And like I said, I just like to get the paint on there, make it one color, and make sure the paint is going to go the distance. But towards the end then, I was playing with how I actually want to texture it, and I did actually do 3 different pressures on the gauge there. This is 19 PSI, and I actually really, really like that texture. That one there is the go. So 19 PSI is what I'm going to spray the whole trailer now for the second coat. I know I got shit on my face, but you can tell by my smile that I absolutely love how this trailer's turned out. You can see, texture, nailed it. Color scheme, nailed it. Trailer, nailed it. Right, I'm bloody pumped to get this thing out, which means that in the next episode, we're gonna start kitting out the inside, which is the exciting part. We've obviously got the King's drawer. We've got heaps of stuff. We've got a Red Arc DC-DC. We've got lights. I've got a dual battery ready to go in. We've just got so much cool stuff to go on the inside of this. We're also doing a drawer and we're gonna make it look very, very custom, which is primo. But honestly, how friggin' sick is this thing gonna be out camping? I'm just gonna roll up. People are gonna be like, wait, what are the Defence Force doing here, bar? Literally gone from an army trailer to a Black Ops trailer. Thing is bloody deadly. Exciting part, we're making progress on our list here. We can tick off the jockey wheel, we did that the other day, and we can tick off paint. We have finished painting. All right, that's all we're gonna have time for today, guys. Thanks for sticking around, and if you made it this far in the video, comment that the trailer is mint. It always fills me with joy knowing that you guys are watching these things all the way through. If any of you guys did want to grab some merch, head on over to our website, roamlife.com. Grab a t-shirt. These things are only 30 bucks and they help me so much making these videos, so I appreciate all you guys' support. Thanks for watching. See you guys on the next episode. Peace.